Good morning and welcome to 100 Yards of Football. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it, and we'll surely appreciate it here at 100 Yards of Football. Today we got the history video, the team of the decade in the National Football League, the Green Bay Packers from 1960 to 1968. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it as I talk about this great team. And it was coached by one of the greatest coaches that ever coached in the National Football League, Mr. Vince Lombardi. So, one more time, if you like the video today, please come in and share it. And I surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards of Football. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. Back in the 60s, this was the team. When you think about the National Football League, we could talk about Joe Namath in the 60s. We could talk about Don Shula in the 60s. But when you think about the 60s, you think about the Green Bay Packers and the man that led it all at the top, Mr. Vince Lombardi. Coach Lombardi was all about this. He was about execution, discipline, unselfishness, and most of all, commitment. He came to the Green Bay Packers in 1958 as a 45-year-old assistant from the New York Giants. And he took over an organization that had went 1-10 the previous year. And think about this, when Coach Lombardi became head coach in 1959, Green Bay had 11 consecutive losing seasons. It was talked that the National Football League wanted to get rid of this franchise up there in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But boy, did that man turn it around. In 1960, the Packers made it to the NFL championship game, and they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles 17-13. But from that point on, Mr. Lombardi never lost a championship game. And when you think about all the players that he had on that team that started that great run in the 60s, you think about Bart Starr, you think about Ray Nitschke, you think about Paul Hornung, you think about the young man from Grambling University, Willie Davis, you think about Willie Wood out of USC, and you think about Herb Allen, you think about Jimmy Taylor out of LSU. And one thing, when Coach Lombardi took that job and turned that team around, and let me throw Jerry Kramer in there too, Hall of Famer offensive guard. He treated all of them like dogs. So he made it point it was going to be my way or the highway. But when I think about this Green Bay Packers team, in my head, I think about when they first won their first championship in 1961. They beat the New York Giants 37-0. Paul Hornung scored 19 points in that game. He was also the place kicker, the punter, and he had a couple of touchdowns. Then in 1961, a year later, 1962, they come back and repeat and beat the Giants 14-7. And Ray Nitschke, the outstanding linebacker, Hall of Famer, 6'3", 235 out of the University of Illinois, had a phenomenal game. 12 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. And the Packers had their 3 world championship in the 60s. Then in 1965, they beat the Cleveland Browns and Jim Brown 23-12. Jim Taylor and Paul Hornung had over 200 yards rushing. And then think about the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl in 1967. Max McGee, 2 touchdowns, went over 100 yards receiving. And then Coach Lombardi's last game, Bart Starr put on the show. 2 touchdowns, and Green Bay beat the Oakland Raiders 33-14. When you look at what the Packers done, they put that little town up there in Green Bay, Wisconsin on the map, and that's why they call it Title Town. That was a great time for the Green Bay Packers, coached by a great coach in Vince Lombardi. And that's one thing that I take away from Coach Lombardi and that team of the decade. There were some great players on that team I just mentioned. But one thing, it was his ability to get that team really come together. And as I said, Coach Lombardi lost the NFL championship game in 1960. He never lost another championship game. He won 5 championships in 7 years. But the game that, to me, is going to put a stamp ever on his coaching career, I was 7 years old. The Green Bay Packers were playing in the NFC Championship game, 13 degrees below. Tom Landry, Vince Lombardi, game going back and forth. And Bart Starr sneaks in from the 1-yard line on 4th down with 15 seconds to go. People, you don't know how that broke my heart as a 7-year-old cheering for the Dallas Cowboys. But that game showed me that Vince Lombardi had went to the pinnacle of being a coach in the National Football League. Outstanding run with the Green Bay Packers from 1960 to 1968. And let me say it one more time. The players. Paul Hornung, one of the greatest offensive players that played in the league. He was a guy that had that thing going. And then on the defensive side, you had the great Ray Nitschke leading the show. Two Hall of Famers, two guys that set the tone, of course, with the quarterback box style. But the gentleman that took him to the another level was my man, Vince Lombardi. And we're talking about great coaches. Right now, we're in the game. We're talking about Nick Saban on the college level. On the professional level, we're talking about Bill Belichick. But however, we better not forget Vince Lombardi. So if you liked the video today, please come in and share it. I'd like to say thank you and God bless. Have a nice week here on 100 Yards of Football.